My son-in-law threw coffee at me and said, "You eat, but don't help." Then he slammed my plate down like I was nothing. It hit my blouse. Not piping hot, but warm enough to sting. I just sat there, soaked, shaking, as the smell of burnt coffee filled the kitchen. The kids froze. Noah looked at me, confused, and Kayla's spoon paused halfway to her mouth. My daughter, Denise, said nothing, not a word. She just stared at the sink. Rudy stood over me, heavy and red-faced. "You just sit here like you're on vacation. This isn't a nursing home, Tina." I didn't say a word back. My hands trembled, but I kept them in my lap. I looked at Denise. She blinked fast, like she wanted to cry, but didn't want it to show. "Rudy," she whispered, "that's enough." He laughed. "Enough?" "No, what's enough is your mother sitting in my house, using our electricity, our food, our water, and giving nothing back. You work, I work. What's she doing? Watching TV and petting the cat." I couldn't look at anyone after that. I pushed back from the table slowly, grabbed a paper towel to blot at my chest, and walked away. I didn't slam the chair. I didn't cry. I just walked up those stairs, one slow step at a time, the coffee soaking through the fabric, sticking to my skin. When I got to the guest room, I shut the door gently, sat on the edge of the bed. My breath came in short, quiet waves. I looked down at the brown stain on my blouse. Funny how something as simple as coffee could carry so much hate. I pulled off the blouse, folded it neatly, and tossed it into the laundry basket. Then I changed into the old cardigan I'd worn on the plane when I first moved in. I stared at the mirror for a while. My reflection looked tired, older than I felt, honestly. My cheeks were sunken a little more than last year. My hair was thinner than it used to be. I traced the curve of my jaw with my finger, wondering when my skin had started to sag. I hadn't planned on living here long, just until I figured things out. After Walt died, things got bad fast. Hospital bills, credit cards, that one plumbing disaster. We lost more than time. We lost our little ranch house in Ohio. 42 years we had it. Paid off too until the end came, and everything caught up. I didn't want to ask Denise, but I had no place else to go. She said, "Yes, of course. It's just temporary, Mom. You'll stay in the guest room. We'll help each other out." It sounded kind at the time, like family. I never imagined I'd be made to feel like a problem. That first week, I folded their laundry. I vacuumed. I cooked a bit, but I didn't want to overstep. Rudy didn't like anyone touching his stuff. He had rules about the thermostat, the TV, even where I left my shoes. At first, I let the little things slide. He complained I didn't do enough, said I should at least contribute to the groceries. I gave them what I could from my Social Security check. It wasn't much, but it was what I had. Every time I made something for dinner, he added salt before tasting it. Every time I helped with the dishes, he wiped them again, like I'd missed something. I tried not to take it personally, but this morning, it felt personal. We were sitting there like any other morning. I'd woken up early to toast the bread and brew the coffee. I set the table. I laid out the eggs Denise had fried the night before. Rudy stomped in from the garage, already annoyed, said the garbage bin smelled, said the living room looked like a daycare. Then he looked at me, sitting at the edge of the table with a half cup of coffee and a small plate, and he snapped. The cup didn't hit me directly, but the splash was enough. And the words were worse. "You eat but don't help." I've never stolen food in my life. I've worked since I was 15. I paid bills, raised 2 kids, helped build a home, supported a husband with a bad back and a heart that gave out too soon. But here I was, being told I was a leech, a burden, a mouth too much. That's what I had become in this house. Not a mother, not a grandmother, just someone extra, unwanted. I sat in that room for a long while, listening to the sounds of the house, the soft pitter-patter of Kayla's feet upstairs, the hum of the dryer, the clinking of a cereal bowl in the kitchen. No one came to check on me, no knock, no apology, nothing. And I realized something then. Something cold and hard and simple. I wasn't part of this family anymore. I was just a mouth they didn't want to feed. 11 months ago, I moved in thinking I was helping. Denise had just gone back to work after staying home with the kids for a few years. Rudy was already working long hours at the auto shop, and they said they needed a little extra support around the house. I thought I'd be useful. I thought I'd be family. The first few weeks, I kept myself busy. I'd wake up before everyone else, make coffee, fix breakfast, wipe down the counters. I did laundry without being asked. Socks, uniforms, towels, even Rudy's grease-stained work shirts. I folded everything neatly and put them in their rooms. I ran the dishwasher, swept the floors, even helped Kayla learn how to tie her shoes. But it didn't seem to matter. No one said thank you. No one noticed when I stopped folding the socks a certain way, or when I started reusing dryer sheets to save them a few cents. One morning, I heard Rudy tell Denise, "Your mother just floats around doing nothing. It's like living with a ghost." That one stuck. I tried not to let it get to me. I told myself I wasn't here to be praised. I was here to help. But then he started bringing up bills. At first, it was casual. He'd say something like, "Electric's up again." Funny how that happens when there's another adult in the house all day. Then he left a note one morning next to my cereal bowl. "We'll need you to chip in $125 a month for utilities." No conversation, just a note. I didn't argue. I went to the credit union that afternoon and transferred what I could from my small check. After groceries, medicine, and church tithes, there wasn't much left, but I gave it. After that, things shifted again. Rudy became colder. Denise was quieter. I tried to be out of the way. I stayed upstairs most afternoons and only came down when I knew the house was empty or the kids needed something. Even then, Rudy would still say things like, "You left your tea mug in the sink again," or "You using the good toilet paper now too," always with a smirk, always loud enough that I couldn't pretend I didn't hear. It hurt. Not the words, exactly, but the tone. Like I was some stranger invading their peace. Like I hadn't rocked Denise to sleep for years or stayed up late sewing her Halloween costumes when she was little. Like I hadn't sat at her hospital bedside when she had that appendix scare in college. I tried to talk to her once. It was right after dinner. The kids were in the living room watching TV, and Rudy had stepped outside to smoke. I said gently, "Sweetheart, is everything okay between me and Rudy? I feel like maybe I'm not wanted here anymore." She didn't look up from her plate. She just said, "He's tired, Mom. Work's been stressful. Just give him some space." And that was it. She didn't ask how I was doing. She didn't ask if the comment about the utility bill bothered me. She didn't even ask about the bruise I had on my wrist from slipping in the kitchen a week ago. I didn't push it. I didn't have the strength to fight for kindness. That night, I sat on the edge of the guest bed and pulled out the envelope I kept hidden at the back of the nightstand drawer. Inside were old tax returns, a property assessment, and the original deed to the house Walt and I once owned. We'd built that place in '84. Walt did most of the work himself, laid the floor, hung the drywall, painted the porch railings 3 times because he didn't like the finish. It sat on a small plot of land just outside Bowling Green, Ohio. Nothing fancy, but it was ours. He was a welder, proud of his work and humble about it. He wore denim overalls until the straps frayed and never once complained about the hours or the burns. He didn't leave me riches, but he left me something better, proof that we built a life worth remembering. Before he passed, he said something that still lives in my chest. We were sitting on the porch, wrapped in an old blanket. He looked at the yard, then at me, and said, "Tina, whatever happens after I'm gone, don't let anyone forget what you built, even if they try to take credit for it. You hold on to the truth." I nodded then, not fully understanding what he meant. But now I do, because here I am, 70 years old, being made to feel like a squatter in my daughter's house, being charged for tap water and lights, spoken to like I'm a burden. And yet, I raised her, I worked, I gave, I lost. Where am I supposed to go now? That night, when everyone was asleep, I stepped outside onto the back porch. The air was crisp, Indiana spring always had that stubborn chill. I wrapped myself in my cardigan, sat on the steps, and opened the envelope again. My fingers ran over the yellowed edges of those documents. My name was still there, Tina M. Cummings. It might not mean much to them, but it meant something to me, because I may not have much these days, not much voice, not much room. But I still had that. I still had proof that I mattered once. And maybe, just maybe, I wasn't done mattering yet. The next morning, I waited until the kids left for school, and Rudy had gone to work before I sat down with Denise. She was folding towels in the laundry room. I stood in the doorway, holding my mug of tea, trying to find the right words. "Denise," I said, "can we talk for a minute?" She looked up briefly, then back at the towel in her hands. "Sure." I stepped in, closed the door behind me. "About yesterday, what Rudy said to me at breakfast, that wasn't okay." She sighed. "Not angry, just tired. He's been under a lot of stress, Mom. He didn't mean it. He threw coffee at me," I said plainly, "in front of the kids." She paused, then started folding again. "He didn't throw it at you. He was upset. He wasn't thinking." I felt something press down on my chest. "Denise, I know he's tired. I know money's tight. But that doesn't give him the right to talk to me like that, or act like I'm freeloading." She finally looked at me then, and I could see it in her eyes. Conflict, guilt, but not enough to say what I needed to hear. "I really need you to just not take it personally right now, okay?" she said. "He didn't sleep well. His mom's been sick again, and the shop's short-staffed. It's just a bad time." "It's been a bad time for a while," I said. She folded the last towel and set it down hard on the pile. "I'm not trying to defend him, Mom. I'm just tired. Everyone's tired." I didn't know what else to say. I wasn't asking her to fight. I just wanted her to acknowledge that it happened, that it was wrong, that I wasn't invisible. Instead, I nodded and stepped out of the laundry room. That evening, I stayed upstairs, ate a sandwich in the guest room, watched the birds outside the window. Around 9:30, I went to the bathroom to wash up, and as I passed by the hallway vent, I heard voices coming from the garage. I stopped, not because I meant to eavesdrop, but because I heard my name. "She's still here?" Rudy said, chuckling. "I thought she'd leave after this morning. Your mother's got skin thicker than a tire." Denise said something I couldn't hear. Rudy laughed again. "All she does is sit around like a queen, waiting to be served. What's next? She want a bell to ring when she's ready to be fed." I backed away from the vent, slowly, walked back to my room, closed the door behind me. I didn't cry, not then. I didn't even feel hurt right away. I just felt hollow, like they'd carved out a space where I used to be. I sat on the bed and reached under the mattress, where I kept an old spiral notepad, tucked inside an even older cookbook, Meals for Two on a Budget, with my handwriting all over the pages. I opened the notebook and turned to a fresh page. March 23rd. Rudy at breakfast. You eat but don't help. Coffee thrown. Denise, silent. March 24th. Denise said, "He didn't mean it." Later heard Rudy in garage. "Your mother's just waiting to be served." I put the pen down and closed the book, slipped it back into the cookbook, and slid it under the mattress again. I didn't know why I was writing it all down. It wasn't like I planned to show it to anyone. Maybe I just needed proof that it happened, that I wasn't imagining it. The next day, Rudy made a joke about my slippers being tripping hazards. I wrote that down too. Then the day after that, he tossed a plastic container on the counter and said, "Next time you finish the leftovers, maybe clean it out instead of leaving it to rot." I'd cleaned it. He knew I had. Wrote that down as well. Writing it made me feel less crazy, less small, like I was still in charge of something, even if it was just a notebook no one else would read. Every time he muttered something under his breath, every time Denise turned her face away when I spoke, every time I felt like a stranger at their table, I wrote it. It became a quiet habit, one I didn't share, not with Denise, not with the grandkids, just me and the pages. Sometimes I'd open it late at night and reread it. Remind myself I wasn't losing my mind, that I was being treated differently, that it wasn't just in my head. I didn't want revenge. I wasn't planning anything. I didn't even know what I could do. I just wanted the truth recorded somewhere. So if I ever started doubting myself, I could open that book and see it right there in black ink. That I was here, that I mattered, and that I remembered. I couldn't sleep that night. I stared at the ceiling for hours, listening to the creaks of the house. I thought about the things Rudy had said, the way Denise just let it pass, the way I had started tiptoeing around in a place that wasn't mine, even after all I'd done to help. Around 3 in the morning, I got up and opened the closet in the guest room. I had packed light when I moved in. 2 suitcases, a few picture frames, my arthritis cream, and 1 small storage box. The box was nothing fancy, just a faded gray plastic container with a cracked lid and a piece of duct tape on the side with my name scribbled on it. I slid it out and sat on the carpet. The air in the closet was dry and smelled faintly of old cedar. I hadn't touched that box in nearly a year. Inside were a few things I hadn't been ready to part with. Walt's dog tags, a worn letter he'd written me back in '79 from a job site in Tennessee, and an old manila folder with documents I'd nearly forgotten about. I pulled the folder out and flipped it open, and there it was, our co-ownership agreement, dated 1993, notarized, signed, and stamped by someone named R. Clark. Walt had insisted we draw it up after he inherited that small plot of land outside of Terre Haute from his uncle. Back then, I didn't care whose name was on what. We were married. Everything we had was ours. But Walt always thought ahead. This way, he said. No matter what happens, you've got a say. It's yours too. It was 4.5 acres, unbuilt. We never developed it, just trees and grass, and 1 gravel path. But it was ours. Still was. Denise had mentioned the land about a year after Walt died. She brought it up gently, over coffee. Mom, what are you planning to do with the land outside Terre Haute? It's just sitting there. I told her I hadn't thought much about it. She and Rudy brought it up again 6 months later. Only this time they came with papers. Rudy said, it would make sense to put it in our name for taxes. We might build something down the road. Maybe a guest house, something the kids can use. I didn't say no, but I didn't sign either. I told them I wanted time to look it over. Then I tucked the paperwork into this very box, shut the lid, and didn't open it again until now. I stared at that folder in my lap and felt something shift in my chest. It wasn't anger, not even sadness. It was something more solid, like when a loose floorboard finally clicks into place. I got up slowly, took the folder with me, and sat at the little desk near the window. I pulled out my phone, scrolled through my contacts, and found the number I'd saved years ago but hadn't used since Walt's funeral. Doug Mercer. He'd been Walt's friend since high school. They worked together for years at the same machine shop. Doug had retired early, but still worked part-time at a title agency in town. I stared at the number for a long time before I pressed call. It rang twice. Hello? His voice was a little slower than I remembered, but still kind. Doug, it's Tina Cummings. There was a pause, then a soft laugh. Well, I'll be. I haven't heard your voice in years. How are you? I'm okay, I said, though my voice cracked a little. Listen, I don't want to take up your time, but I have a question about the land Walt left. You still got that agreement? He asked. I do. I'm looking at it now. My name's on it, signed and notarized. Then it's yours, he said, without missing a beat. That land's as much yours as it ever was, maybe more now. I never signed anything over, I said, even though they asked me to. You mean Denise and her husband? He sighed. Smart you didn't. Once it's gone, it's gone. I hesitated before asking. If I still own it, can I sell it? You can do more than sell it, Tina, he said. You can decide who deserves it. That sentence stayed with me. After I hung up, I sat still for a long time. I looked at the folder again, at the crisp stamp near the bottom, at Walt's signature beside mine. His handwriting hadn't changed in all the years I knew him. Bold, sure, no loops or frills. I remembered when he first showed me the land. It was the spring of '94. We parked by the side of the road, walked through the brush in our work boots, and he said, "It's not much now, but it's quiet. One day we'll figure out what to do with it." We never did. Life got busy. Bills piled up. Then came the surgeries and the long hospital stays. But the land stayed untouched, waiting. That morning, I looked out the window at Rudy's car in the driveway, at Denise hurrying the kids into the back seat. They moved like a family, like I wasn't even there. And for the first time in a long while, I didn't feel like I was watching something that used to be mine. I felt like someone who still had something worth holding on to. I put the folder back into the box, slid it under the bed this time. Not out of sight, but closer. That piece of land was never just dirt and grass. It was a piece of me, a piece of Walt, and maybe a way forward. The following Tuesday, I took the senior shuttle into Bloomington. I didn't tell Denise or Rudy. I just said I had an appointment in town and left after the kids caught their bus. I wore my dark blue cardigan, the one with the stitched elbow patches, and packed the deed folder into my canvas tote. It was raining lightly when I stepped out, the kind of steady drizzle that soaks you if you stand still too long. I didn't mind. I just kept my head down and held on to my bag like it was something valuable. The shuttle driver, a nice young man named Curtis, didn't ask questions. He helped me up and told me to tap the metal railing twice when I was ready to get off. I nodded, thankful for the silence. Lorna Gage's office was just off Kirkwood Avenue, tucked between a flower shop and a small insurance agency. The building was older, stone steps, wooden door, but neat and welcoming. I stepped inside and was met with the faint smell of lemon cleaner and fresh paper. A woman in a soft gray sweater stood from the front desk and looked at me with a warm smile. "Tina Cummings?" she asked. "Yes," I said. She extended her hand. "I'm Lorna. It's been a long time." It took me a second, then I remembered. She had been in my second grade class nearly 30 years ago, back when I worked as the school secretary, back when I knew every kid's birthday and which ones had peanut allergies. "You had those pigtails," I said, smiling. "Always running late, but you brought me wildflowers once." She laughed. "That sounds like me." We moved into a small office in the back. She offered me water, which I declined, and then we got to work. I handed her the folder with the deed. She adjusted her glasses, flipping through the pages carefully. She didn't rush. After a few minutes, she looked up and said, "This is valid. Everything's here, co-ownership, notarized, and your name is on title. No transfer has ever been made. So I still own it," I said. "You do," she said. Free and clear. I exhaled, not loud, just enough to notice it left my chest. She continued, "This property is classified as residential, and since it's undeveloped, you have options. And here's the interesting part. There's been recent movement in that area. A few nonprofits have been scouting for land to build elder housing and community gardens. Nothing big, but meaningful, quiet, permanent." I sat up a little straighter. "Elder housing?" She nodded. "A women's co-op approached us a few weeks ago. They're looking to buy land for a small development. 4 or 5 one-level homes, accessible, communal spaces. It's early stages, but they're serious. They want places where women over 60 can live with dignity, on their own terms." I blinked. "You think they'd want mine if I call them today?" she said. "I bet we could get a preliminary offer by the end of the week." My hands rested in my lap, still and heavy. I looked out the window behind her desk. The rain had let up. The sidewalk outside glistened. "This doesn't have to be loud," Lorna said gently. "We can keep everything off record until it's finalized. You're not obligated to sell, Tina. But if you want to, if you're ready, I can help make it happen." I didn't answer right away. I just looked back down at the folder, at Walt's signature, now slightly faded, but still strong. All this time, I'd been sitting in that house, shrinking into the corners, folding myself smaller just to keep the peace, letting a man half my age treat me like old furniture. But here, in this quiet little office, I had something again. A choice. I want to move forward, I said. My voice didn't shake. But quiet, please. I don't want them to know. Not yet. She nodded. You're in charge, Tina. Every step, there was a stillness in the room after that. Not awkward, just calm. Lorna pulled out a form and began jotting down the details. She asked for my mailing address, a backup phone number, and if I preferred email or paper documents. I chose paper. I liked having something I could hold in my hands. Before I left, she said, you know, when I was 8, I got in trouble for throwing a tantrum in the hallway. You walked me to the office and gave me a chocolate milk, told me that even when life gets loud, I didn't have to. I chuckled softly. That sounds like something I'd say. Well, it stuck, she said. And I want you to know, you're doing something good here. I didn't say much on the ride home. Curtis dropped me off right at the corner. The sun had come out by then, warming the sidewalk just enough to steam. As I walked back to the house, folder tucked under my arm, I felt something I hadn't felt in a long time. Not joy, not excitement, backbone. The kind that came from remembering who I was before someone else told me what I wasn't. It was a Thursday. Denise had taken Kayla to her piano lesson, and Noah to karate. Rudy was still at work, probably stuck under the hood of a pickup or complaining about customers. The house was quiet, just the hum of the fridge and the clock ticking in the hallway. I'd been waiting for this window all week. Lorna had called that morning. The sale was ready, final paperwork drawn up. The co-op had accepted the offer. They'd even sent a little note saying they were honored to turn the land into a community for women like me. I stood in the guest room and stared at my suitcase. It wasn't big, just one of those older roller bags with a wobbly wheel. I didn't need much. I packed 2 sweaters, my worn house shoes, my pillbox, and a folded picture of Walt in his work shirt, standing in front of our first garden. I added my notepad, the deed papers, and one of my scarves that still smelled faintly of lavender. That's it. That's all I took. I slipped on my cardigan, checked the room one last time, and pulled the door shut behind me. Downstairs, I left an envelope on the kitchen counter. I didn't hide it, didn't tape it to the fridge, or tuck it away. Just laid it there next to Rudy's sports magazine and Denise's coupon booklet. Plain and clear. I'd written the letter by hand the night before. 1 page. No anger, just truth. When I stepped out the front door, I didn't look back. A yellow cab pulled up 5 minutes later, right on time. The driver nodded, helped with my bag, and asked where to. I gave him the name of the extended stay hotel in town, the one with the kitchenette and small laundry room. It would do for now. The ride was short. I didn't talk much, just looked out the window at the same streets I'd walked on for years. They looked different now, like I wasn't trapped in them anymore. When I got to the hotel, I paid in cash, checked in, and unpacked slowly. I hung up my 2 sweaters, placed Walt's photo on the dresser, slipped the deed into the desk drawer. Then I made myself tea and sat in the armchair by the window. The sun was setting, and the sky had that orange and pink stretch that always made me think of early autumn. I stayed like that for a while, quiet, still. Back at the house, I imagine Rudy walked in around 6. He probably tossed his boots by the door and grumbled about traffic. Denise might have asked what he wanted for dinner. The kids would have been on their tablets, barely noticing the time. Then he would have seen the envelope. Inside was the signed transfer letter, the deed paperwork, and my note. It read, Rudy, you said I was eating for free, that I was just taking up space. So I did what I thought was fair. I gave the land away to people who'll build something that feeds others. Maybe not in the way you'd understand, but in a way that matters. The land is no longer yours to hope for. It's theirs now, and I'm free. Tina, I didn't wait for a phone call. Didn't expect one. That night, I slept better than I had in months. The next morning, I got a message from Lorna. The transfer was complete. Funds had been processed. The co-op would make the public announcement within a week, but for now, it was all sealed. I sat on the hotel bed, phone in hand, and just breathed. No noise. No Rudy yelling from the hallway. No Denise walking past me like I was a piece of furniture. Just peace. Later that afternoon, I got a call from the co-op's director, a woman named Cynthia. Her voice was warm. "We're so grateful for your gift, Ms. Cummings," she said. "This land will help create real homes, safe places for women starting over." I thanked her, told her I wasn't looking for praise. I just wanted it to matter. "It already does," she replied. I hung up and sat by the window again. Same chair, same tea. But this time, I felt lighter, not young again, just clear, like something had lifted off me. I didn't know what Rudy said when he read the letter. Didn't know if Denise defended me or folded in on herself. I didn't expect her to call, not yet. But I imagined their faces, him storming into the kitchen, her standing still, staring at my handwriting. Maybe the kids asking, "Where's Grandma?" They didn't see me leave, but they would feel the space I left behind. And for the first time in a long time, that thought didn't make me sad. It made me feel like I had done something right. It was a Tuesday morning, 2 weeks after I left. I was sitting at the small table in the shared kitchen of my new place, a co-op house, just a mile from the library. There are 5 of us here, all women, all over 65. We each have our own rooms, but we share meals, chores, and quiet time. That morning, I was peeling an orange, while Joanne, my roommate down the hall, worked on a puzzle. Doris sat across from me, knitting something that looked like a scarf, but might have been a pot holder. Miss Fern, who used to run a diner, was clicking away on an old laptop, trying to email a photo to her grandson. Everything about the place felt easy. Nobody rushed, nobody snapped, and not once in the days I'd been here did anyone make me feel like I was in the way. Around 10 a.m., my phone lit up. A number I knew too well, Denise. I didn't answer. A minute later, it rang again. I let it go. Then came a text. "Mom, call me, please." Still, I didn't respond. Instead, I poured myself another cup of tea and sat near the window where the light came through just right. I watched a pair of birds hop around the edge of the garden box. Peaceful, ordinary. Later that day, Lorna forwarded me a copy of the notice served to the house. Denise and Rudy had received formal documentation that the land transfer was complete, legal, binding, permanent. I imagined the moment they opened that envelope. Rudy's voice rising, his hands flying up, him saying something like, "She sold it? She really sold it." Maybe he even flipped a chair. Maybe Denise sat down hard on the edge of the couch, trying to understand. He'd mentioned developing it a few times before, said he wanted to build a rental or maybe a cabin to rent out on weekends, something they could profit from. He talked like the land was already his. It never was. I imagine he stormed into the garage, probably kicked something or cursed, said I had no right, or called it a dirty trick. He might have called me names too. That was fine. I didn't need his approval. I didn't need to explain myself anymore. Later that evening, Joanne made stew, and we all sat together on the screened-in porch. No TV, no phones, just spoons clinking and small talk about weather and who forgot to water the basil. No one asked me why I had that faraway look on my face, but I think they knew. These women, they've been through their own hard chapters. One lost her house when her son put it in his name and then took out loans. Another raised 4 boys and said the loneliest part of her week is Sundays when none of them call. We don't say much about it, but we get it. After dinner, I sat with Doris in the living room while she showed me how to crochet. I was all thumbs, but she was patient. The yarn slipped through her fingers like she'd been doing it forever. In the quiet, I found myself smiling. Not the kind I used to fake at that kitchen table back at Denise's house, Not the tight-lipped one I wore when Rudy was talking too loud. This one felt different, real, like I'd come back to myself. At bedtime, I checked my phone again. 2 more missed calls from Denise, 1 voicemail from Rudy. I didn't listen to it. I wasn't angry, just done. I lay down in my little room, with the window cracked open. The spring breeze moved through the curtains gently. I reached over and touched the edge of Walt's photo on my nightstand. They thought I was draining them, I whispered, but they had no idea. All that time I spent folding towels, making beds, keeping my mouth shut. It wasn't weakness. It was storing strength, saving it up, piece by piece, until I had enough to walk out without falling apart. Now I sit in a room where nobody rolls their eyes when I speak, where nobody measures my worth by what I pay, where I don't have to ask for permission to make toast or use the last banana. This isn't some fancy ending. It's just a quiet beginning. And honestly, that's enough. These days, my mornings are slow, but in a good way. I wake up when I'm ready. No one pounds on the bathroom door or tells me to keep the volume down on the TV. I sit by the window with a cup of tea and watch the light change across the garden beds. Twice a week, I volunteer at a small senior center on the edge of town. Nothing fancy, just a brick building next to a laundromat with chipped paint and a ramp that squeaks when it rains. But the people inside, it's worth every step. I help with paperwork mostly. I sit with folks who don't understand where their money goes, or who've been told by family that they don't need to worry about the details. I show them how to read their property documents. I've helped 3 women find out their names were still on homes they were told they'd lost. We call them truth check-ins. Sometimes it's emotional. One lady cried when she saw her name on a tax roll she thought had been erased. Another man just sat quietly and said, "So it really was mine all along." Once a month, we host what we call dignity dinners. It started small. Just 5 of us around a folding table with casseroles and paper plates. Now we have close to 40 people. Everyone brings a dish if they can, or a story if they can't. Nobody leaves hungry. Some nights we read poems. Other times we just talk. No loud music, no speeches, just people who want to feel seen. I've met women who've been pushed out of their homes by adult children. Men whose bank accounts were drained by someone they trusted. And every time I hear their stories, I think, thank God I walked when I did. Rudy never followed up. Denise sent one text 4 days after the land transfer was finalized. It said, "Mom, I'm sorry if we made you feel unwelcome. We didn't mean to push you out. I hope you're safe." That was it. I read it once, then put the phone down. I didn't feel angry. I didn't feel much at all. Sometimes silence says more than a paragraph ever could. I haven't replied. I'm not punishing her. I just don't owe her the energy right now. Maybe one day, maybe not. What I know is this: I didn't leave that house out of spite. I left because staying meant shrinking, and I've done enough of that in my life. People assume getting older means fading, that you're supposed to back away from the table, give up your seat, nod politely while others talk over you. But I'm done with that. I may be 70 now, but I'm still here, still sharp, still able to build something new from what others wanted to toss aside. And I'm not sorry for choosing myself. Last Sunday, I sat down at my little desk and opened my notebook. Not the one I used to hide. This one's new. The pages are clean. No lists of insults, no record of disrespect, just thoughts, hopes, reminders. I flipped to the first page and wrote, "Some people think growing old means disappearing. I think it means becoming too solid to ignore. It's true. I don't blend into the background anymore. I'm not waiting for someone else to decide if I belong. And if there's one thing I've learned from this whole journey, from the coffee cup to the deed, from the silence at the table to the knock at their door, it's that we all have more power than we think. It might take time to see it, it might come quietly, but it's there. You just have to hold on to it." Now, before I go, I want to ask you something. Have you ever been treated like background in your own life? Have you ever stayed silent just to keep peace? Tell me below. I'm listening, just like someone finally listened to me. And if this story meant something to you, take a second to like it, share it with a friend who needs it, and hit that subscribe button. We tell stories like mine every week. Real ones, ones that remind us we're not alone, even when it feels that way. Because truth doesn't expire, and neither does courage. Thanks for being here.